Our guest on the other side of today is one of the most up-and-coming, but also already most established. Can you have both of those things together? I'm not sure. Actresses from the West Midlands. Her name is Claudia Jessie. She lives in Moseley. You'll have seen her in the brilliant Line of Duty. You'll have seen her in the wonderful Vanity Fair on ITV. You'll have seen her starring in the third and final series of WPC 56. My 11-year-old daughter loved watching her in Dixie. She is Claudia Jessie. She's with us now. Claudia, what a roll call for such a young woman. How old are you? 27?
Well, no, not anymore. I was, though, at one point, and that was lovely. But now I'm 29.
29?
I know. 30 this year.
But what an incredible roll call of jobs already.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I feel fortunate. I haven't really followed a stream of similar characters. They've always been really different from one another, which is nice because I always figured I could only really do one thing.
Well, we'll talk about your acting and all that stuff. But so we've got to fess up here. You live in Moseley now.
I do.
And you identify very much with Birmingham and the West Midlands.
Absolutely.
You were born in Moseley at Sorrento Hospital.
That's right.
Go on, tell me a bit about it. The fessing up comes to the fact that you did spend a fair bit of your childhood in
London.
Yeah.
That place.
All right. But, can you remember anything growing up in Moseley? Because you moved when you were quite young, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I always remember we came back a lot to see family. So I'd always remember the Christmas market. That was a big memory of mine, like always coming to the German market in town growing up and seeing my nan who lives in Northfield and I'd always felt like it was a big part of my life. And then I moved back when I was about 17, moved back to Brum, and then sort of did a bit of a dance between Brum and London, and then ever since I was like 23, I've been back in Brum because I just love it so much.
Yeah, so it's fair to say that you had a bit of a difficult childhood.
I mean, yeah, like when my dad sort of left, and my mum worked really hard to make sure that me and my older brother, I've got a lovely older brother called David, were safe and happy and well, and she did a really great job because we're all here still and we're very close to my family. But yeah, it was hard, like not a lot of money, sort of bailiffs knocking at the door, and school was really difficult. I left school quite young because it was very odd. I always felt really odd, and I don't know if I really fit in very much. So I left quite young, and my mum homeschooled me. So she had a lot on her plate.
Did she?
Yeah, she homeschooled me.
But seriously, bailiffs knocking on the door.
Yeah, I remember we lived in a council estate in North London for a bit, and there were bailiffs like after my dad left, like bashing on the door, and my mum had like my brother under one arm and me under one arm. She was like, it'll pass, and I never look back at it and feel like it was a bad or sad or like traumatic memory, because I think what I remember most is like my mum holding us, not the sound of the bailiffs, because I guess, without wanting to sound too poetic, her love was more powerful than their sort of desperation to get inside.
And I guess you were quite young at the time, perhaps not fully understanding the magnitude of what was
going on. No, maybe I thought
it
was just a big game, but it wasn't for my mum, bless her.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to enjoy this next hour, definitely, definitely. Great first track as well. Great first musical selection.
Thank you.
Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen, because...
That's right. I love him. He writes about being young and in love and about cars, and I think those are really cool things to write about. I've seen him live with my uncle. Me and my uncle are big fans.
Where did you see him?
The O2.
In London,
London, yeah.
I saw him at the Rico a few years ago in Coventry.
Hello.
Brilliant.
Yeah, when he played. Yeah. I was desperate. It's one of the bucket list things to do was to see Bruce Springsteen live. Also, I mean, not to be too morbid, but I want it played at my funeral. Because I kind of feel like it would make people feel... I know, but you've got to think about these things.
The thing I thought about Bruce Springsteen when I saw him, and I'm not a big fan of arena or stadium gigs.
Right.
He's the only person I've ever seen play a football stadium who shrunk it down to the size of an intimate small hall venue. He's just got that ability to make you think that he's singing for you, even though you're about 100 yards from the stage. It's astonishing.
And he's just non-stop as well. So I feel like as a role model for like someone who works really hard, like one of the things that encouraged me to like not have a to not depend on a part-time job and work as a full-time actress was, you know, Bruce Springsteen said he didn't want a job unless it had something to do with his guitar. He didn't want to get paid for anything unless it had something to do with his guitar. And also he wouldn't have supporting artists when he'd be working on tour because he wouldn't trust them enough to turn up on time, to work as hard as him. And I thought, oh, what an amazing determination he had to be successful. And I was inspired by that.
We love that, don't we? Bopping around to the boss, me and Claudia Jessie. Claudia Jessie, our guest on The Other Side Of, actress from Moseley. You'll have seen her in Line of Duty, in Vanity Fair, WPC 56, Doctor Who. And as I mentioned, my 11-year-old daughter has loved a series that she was in for CBBC a few years ago called Dixie as well. Now, Claudia, you talk about this quite difficult childhood you had then, and bailiffs knocking on the door. How come you left school with no qualifications? Because these days, I'm not being funny, I think there's a generational thing. You know, I interviewed a lot of people for this programme, and maybe people in their 50s and 60s, it wasn't such an unusual thing to jack it in, decide at the age of, 14, 15, 16, as you could leave school in those days, and just, head out on the road as a rock and roller. For people of your generation, to leave school with no qualifications is pretty rare.
Yeah, and I think, it definitely wasn't as cool as you made it sound there, like leaving and heading out on this amazing mission. It was more because I just had such a tough time at school. I found it really, really difficult, and my mum saw that and then just supported me in nurturing me from home. And everything was above the board. We did everything legally, the education board would visit us all the time. And, I read something recently that you remember things that you learn because it's down to the state in with which you learn it. So I don't remember anything from school, but I remember everything I did when I was learning with my mum. And I think because I was having experiences, I was outdoors, I was, having physical experiences and interactions with the world. And that made education and learning so much more fun for me, and definitely sort of worked with the way I thought, which was really sort of colourful and distracted and not very easily maintained, I think. Ha ha ha, says the actress. But my mum sort of really embraced that, and so did the education system. They would see us and spend time with us, and they sort of enjoyed the way things were going, but it was just never really massively encouraged. I don't know if it'd be the same now. I think people...
Well, it's not that long ago. So at what age then did you stop formal education?
14.
Wow.
I'll be 30 this year, so it's a long time out of education. And then
and your mom, did she have any qualifications to teach you?
No, but she did an incredible job, and just so brave as well, because I just don't know how she had the time, because she was obviously working as well. She was a working mother, and there was no one else.
So you weren't, if I can put it impolitely, you weren't just dossing and watching the telly then?
No, not at all. And I would have hated that. As when I was younger, sitting and watching telly weren't the things that interested me. Reading. I was always reading, and always creating things and doing little skits, being odd. And so I would have hated to be stagnant, and that sort of maintained me.
Was the school thing, you've talked a bit already, we've only known each other for about a quarter of an hour, about your oddness. Was that something that other kids picked on you for, or was it just more your sense of not feeling quite right in that conventional setting?
I think a little from column A and a little from column B. I definitely didn't feel like I fit within this system. And I think that was obvious to the people around me. the circumstances weren't the best either when I was going to school or when my brother was going to school. My brother obviously finished education and he went to uni, which is really incredible. And but I think for me, it was just so strong, this sense of where I was not right for me. And I think then having a smaller, more intimate setting to develop worked better for me.
So your mum takes you on as your teacher.
Thank you, Mum.
As well as providing for you, as well as all that. And clearly you were stimulated by it, you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But at the age of 16 then, leaving school with no qualifications, as the father of 3 daughters, the idea that any of them might leave with no qualifications terrifies me. Not because I think there's anything wrong with it, but just because I know how tough the world of work can be and how important pieces of paper can be when you're applying for jobs. What was it like for you at 16, heading out into the big wide world?
Well, I mean, I was 14 when I sort of stopped it. And then I think I got oh my goodness, a part-time job, sweeping up hair at a hairdresser's. And this was just before I came back to Birmingham. And my mum found this little place for me to do singing, dancing, acting, that sort of stuff, and also I forgot to add, during all of this time before, leading up to me leaving school, my mum was cleaning houses to provide violin lessons, football classes for my brother, and also I had ballet classes. So my mum is a trained masseur, so she would do massages and physical therapy and stuff, and she'd exchange that for a lesson with my violin teacher or my ballet teacher growing up. You have to be creative when you're poor, right? And so this was happening. So my mum had built me a foundation of creativity under my request as well. My mum was always quite an intuitive parent, so if I was I wanted to do this, my mum wanted me to experience it. So I had all of this creativity underneath already, and then my mum found this little place where I could express myself for 3 hours every Saturday, and I did it and I loved it and it helped. But again, I found the setting quite difficult. I think large groups of people, I don't know whether that was really working for me. Also, I was good. I discovered I was good at something and I was funny. And that's what sort of changed my life, is when I realized I could make people laugh, and it just made me feel so happy. It made me feel so happy. It made my family laugh. Sometimes it prevented bullies, because they'd be oh, she's made us laugh. That's quite a cool thing. And it was from then that I started to be I might want to make a career out of this, I guess.
Let's get your next musical selection. I Want Your Love by Chic.
Yes. So I think growing up, my mum sort of dealt with the funk and the soul in the house. And when my dad was still about, he sort of dealt with the Beatles and the Zombies and stuff like that. But so my mum's the soul of the house.
How you doing then? Adrian Goldberg here with The Other Side Of, and this week the other side of the actress Claudia Jessie from Moseley in Birmingham. Born in Moseley, went and lived in London for a bit. We'll forgive her for that, because she's come back now to live amongst a star of just so many great programmes that I have loved, and I'm sure you have as well. Line of Duty, Vanity Fair, WPC 56 amongst them. Also had a role in a fantastic movie as well with Gemma Arterton and Bill Nighy that we'll talk about a little bit later on if we get the time. But Claudia, you left school then at 16, no qualifications, but you've clearly then already been switched on to the creative world, maybe the world of acting and so on. How do you get a big break as somebody who is, by your own admission, growing up in a pretty broke household? You don't necessarily have the right connections in your family. How does it happen for you?
First and foremost, a lot of really hard work and commitment. And it has been, it's taken up a lot of time, but to get great results, you have to make great efforts. And that's sort of what's been instilled in me, is to work hard and to not give up. And I think what we didn't have in money or in status or whatever, you know, what we didn't have there, we did have in encouragement. We had that in abundance. And my mum was always reminding me that I can do whatever it is that I want to do. I can do it. She really believed in it. And like, it's funny because sometimes I think about it, I'm like, goodness me, she really did she never stopped me from doing anything. She always encouraged me to go forward and do it, which is amazing, really, because I'm not a mother and I can't imagine what it must be like to just be like, just do it. And just like, you know, it must be scary to be like, I hope this works out. But she really believed in me. And when we came back to Birmingham, I must have been about like 17, and I started practicing Buddhism. So it's been in my life since I was a little girl. My auntie and my mum both practice Buddhism. So we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. We're the noisy Buddhists. We're not the quiet ones. And we were really, really struggling. My wonderful stepfather had come into our life by then. He came into our life when I was about 14. So just after I'd left school. And we'd moved back up to Brum, and it was just really difficult. I was struggling to sort of find my place and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to go about it. And my aunt had really encouraged me to start practicing Buddhism. So I did. And it sort of changed my life because it gave me loads of confidence and this ability to go for what I want to. And I moved to Moseley. And I turned 18 and I started working in pubs. And that's when my life really changed.
I was talking about your big acting break.
I know, but it couldn't have happened without that.
Oh, go on then.
Because, well, firstly, it gave me the strength of like being, you have to be really quick. You have to be quick. And I mean like quick-witted, quick behind the bar and ready to deal with like drunk people who are saying things that are unintelligible. Also, that's where I developed my friends. I made friends when I was 18 years old. I didn't really make them before then. I really struggled. And it was when I was 18 and I realized that I was like, oh, I get to choose friends. I choose people who I want to be around me. And it was in that environment that I established those friendships. And that's where I met my best pal, Layla, who's Kingsley's born and bred. Like, that's when we first met. And her first sentence was, would you like a slice of pizza? And I knew we'd be best friends forever. She knew me.
It's that easy with you, is it?
That's
really?
Right. It's food really. And it was earning money, taking responsibility, and then putting that money into something that was going to benefit me. And I met a woman called Hannah Phillips. Hannah Phillips is a playwright. She's a director, and she's a director of theatre here in Birmingham. I think there's a project she looks after in Bromsgrove, a theatre in Bromsgrove. And she sort of was creating these circumstances for me to, not personally me, for young people to devise and perform theatre about issues, whether that be social issues, about well-being and stuff, or supporting groups of people like LGBTQ, feminist theatre, stuff like that. And it was through her that I've got a lot to thank her for, really, because it was her in Birmingham that started putting me in like plays. And
so where would you perform then? Where were these?
Well, I started gigging because I sing. It's a very haphazard way of going about my life. I can't make you know, I can't make sense of it really myself. Bad timeline. I've done it all wrong. But I started singing because it was just something I could do. I could do it. My mum is an amazing singer. She was a singer growing up. That was her career, really. And she's, you know, a teacher. She's a singing teacher now. And I used to gig at like the Cross, and I worked at the Cross when it was the Cross. It's now obviously not. I used to gig there, and I would just do open mics and stuff like that. And then Hannah Phillips was putting on this night, and I'd be sort of there singing, but also comparing slightly, and then other acts, like whether it be like drag queens or, you know, sort of cabaret, like real fun stuff in town. I'd be involved in it always because of Hannah, who was amazing. And then we did a play called, it had two names, depending on what theatre you saw it at. It was called The Fear of Queer when it was down in London. And then when it was performed here, we did it at the Rep, it was called Heterophobia. And it was about if, you know, like being heterosexual was considered in a, you know, quote unquote, not the norm, and what that would be like turning it on its head. And I did that, and then I was like, right, okay, I can act. I can act, I can do this. And comedy was really where I wanted to be. And then I got an agent, against the odds, I will say. Very much against the odds, because every agent in the UK said no. Quite rightly too. I had no experience or qualifications except for one. And then, it all started from there, really.
Okay, brilliant. Let's get your next bit of music then, the Young Pilgrims.
Oh, well, they are Birmingham based. And I know them. I know them.
That's good enough for a reason. Come on, let's
They're
hear 'em.
beautiful, wonderful lads.
Oh, that's brilliant stuff. Young Pilgrims, local act there, chosen by our guest today on the other side of Claudia, Jessie. And you say you were a barmaid then in various pubs in Moseley. Go on, list the pubs that you were a barmaid in.
Oh, get ready for this. Okay, the Cross, when it was the Cross,
Yes,
that's where I
I
started.
remember that, yeah.
I was there for
You used
about...
to go and watch comedy in the Cross upstairs.
Absolutely
Nice,
wonderful,
yeah.
yes. So I was there for about 9 months. Then I was at the Prince of Wales.
Yeah.
But they didn't let me work at the bar.
Really?
I know, I was working in the kitchen. I was like a pot wash, right? But they never trusted me at the bar. And I feel like I really want to have a word and be like, why was I never allowed to work front of house? Then I was at the Fighting Cocks for a while. And that one was intense because obviously it shuts at the same time every night. It shuts at 11. So it'd be just like 12 deep at the bar for this really intense short period, and then it'd be done. And then I worked at the Bull's Head for like a year, and that was my favourite because it was just the most fun. Because of all the nights and the events that we had there. I loved it.
And somewhere along the way, you got your agent in London and you were kind of up and down a little bit between here and the smoke.
Yeah.
And what was your first sort of, when I say proper, but you know, your first mainstream acting gig?
Oh,
then?
you'll be pleased to know it was Doctors.
Ah, of course it was
Which
Doctors.
I loved.
Yeah.
And I've done Doctors twice. And I'd happily do it again. I'd happily do it again. I love it so much. It's so rapid. And because I didn't train, I didn't, obviously, as we all know, we've discussed, I didn't go to theatre school, you know. And I feel like I got all of my training in my first job, which was Doctors, because they're incredible. They're not given the biggest budget and they run so quickly. It's so impressive. The crew are amazing. You know, BBC Birmingham, like a beautiful bunch of people. The crew are amazing.
Well, I know the BBC sometimes gets a bit of criticism, but Doctors comes out of here and gives great opportunities for local actors.
That's right.
You are living proof of that. Other terrific local actors like Barty Patel and Lorna Laidlaw who've done really well on it and from it as well. Thinking about your massive roles though, Line of Duty, Vanity Fair. I mean, that, having kind of cut your teeth on Doctors, really. Suddenly you're in a massive series like Line of Duty. Was that a game changer for you, or was there anything before that had suddenly put you up there in terms of maybe recognition on the street or people wanting to do interviews with you?
I don't think so, really. I feel like I'd done a lot of comedy. I'd been doing a lot of comedy, and that's sort of where I thought I belonged. Not doing drama, you know. I've always considered myself a clown, and clowning was sort of what I wanted to do. I used to do bits of like stand up here and there, which was terrifying, but I loved it. But I didn't think I was allowed to be in drama, especially because I didn't go to theatre school. Didn't come from like wealth. I think you've got these ideas that you've got to be minted, posh, and I'm being, you know, flippant, but you feel like you've got to come from a certain place to be able to develop in those areas, and I didn't think I was one of those people, and so I didn't think I was allowed to do drama, I think. And then I got asked to film a self-tape for Line of Duty, and I love Line of Duty, and I loved it before I was in it, and because I love Vicky McClure. Like, she was a real magnet for me to watch that show. She's, you know, a Midlands lady. She lives in Nottingham. She, you know, and that was really inspiring to me. She didn't, and because I felt like I was similar, you know. This Is England, Shane Meadows, which is real Midlands, like,
Yeah,
championing the
great
Midlands.
stuff, yeah.
So I really connect with that, as do all of my pals. We all love her. So I was like, absolutely, I'll tape for it. And then they called me in and I couldn't believe it. And then a few weeks later, my agent called and said I got the job, and I just was like, I burst into tears. And I ran down to my partner and I was like, because I wasn't allowed to tell anybody either, right? But I was like, I'm going to tell my partner and my mum, and that's it. Like, my stepdad didn't know, my brother didn't know, my partner's family didn't know. And, but I was like, I got line of duty. Sobbing. And I feel like that was when I think I took myself seriously in drama, even though prior to that I'd been in Their Finest, the film,
which is the film we mentioned earlier with Gemma Arterton and
right.
Bill Nighy, which is a beautiful film. It's a lovely
it's
film,
gorgeous.
I think.
It's really lovely,
lovely movie, yeah.
And it was nice. I got to sing. That felt nice, because I don't really get to do that much anymore. But I had done drama before Line of Duty. I'd done loads, But I never felt like I guess I was like, oh, this is in between until I go back to doing loads of comedy. And then when I did Line of Duty, I was like, oh no, I can do this. This is fun. I can do this.
Let's get your next selection. This is the Fleet Foxes and Montezuma.
It's my favourite band in the world, and it's my partner's favourite band, and I've seen them live 3 times. I'd see them live every year if I could, so I love them.
So now I am older than my mother and father, when they had their daughter. Now what does that say about me? Oh,
How do then? Adrian Goldberg here, and the other side of today, the Birmingham actress Claudia Jessie, who lives in Moseley, went away to London for a bit, but has come back to be amongst us. We were talking a bit about Line of Duty, one of her prime roles, and I suppose a big mainstream breakthrough role, Vanity Fair as well, where she played Amelia Sedley. And there was a time when you could watch Bodyguard on one side, written by the Line of Duty writer Jed Mercurio, but then you could watch Vanity Fair if you didn't catch it live, if you were hooked on Bodyguard as I was. But Vanity Fair was there on the catch-up, and you were telling me earlier it was one of the most caught up with shows. Yeah. And I think Vanity Fair was one of the best dramas of last year on television. Didn't get the credit it deserved, only because it was on ITV, and ITV isn't seen as being credible in terms of costume drama, but it was a brilliant programme.
I loved that so much. I still can't really believe it happened. I still can't believe I got Line of Duty. I mean, I've got a lot of catching up to do with myself. It might all hit me one day. But I'd never played anyone like Amelia Sedley before. Like that, to me, if I told my 19-year-old self that this would be happening, because this to me feels like the height of fanciness.
And Amelia Sedley, for people who don't know, she's a very nice woman. She kind of adopts as a friend the rather feckless and footloose Becky Sharp, but she's Amelia's the prim and proper one, the proper lady.
Yeah.
So clearly for you, that was playing against type.
Yes. You're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, she is. She's not from Birmingham.
She certainly isn't.
She's not from Birmingham, and she cries an awful lot, which I don't say is too far away from me. I'm a bit of a crier, but I'm okay with that. I've come to terms with it. But yeah, I think she's so far removed from anything I know. She's completely devoted to a real maternal existence, which I'm not, and quite easily shocked, which I'm not. But I never thought I'd play someone so this. Feels weird to say, but it just felt so fancy.
It's why it's called acting,
Yeah.
I want to go back to the Line of Duty thing as well, because your character, Jodie Taylor, you're absolutely obsessed by DCI Ros Huntley, sort of,
right.
idolise her in a way. played by
Right.
Tandy Newton. And just the chance again for you getting that big breakthrough to play
Yeah, my goodness.
with such an actress as Tandy Newton.
Yeah, so it wasn't really hard to play someone who was really obsessed with her. So, but she's the most whimsical, goofy, bizarre, beautiful creature ever. Like, she's so funny, and it's the most serious show in the world, right? It's the most serious show in the world, and it's full of people who are bonkers. Like, because we would
Showbiz
constantly,
secrets,
yeah, right. We were constantly laughing, and definitely not about the topic of the show. I tell you that, because it's not a laughing matter. But like when the cameras weren't rolling, we were a really tight unit, because they really are a welcoming bunch. And Jed's a genius.
Jed Mercurio, a guest on this programme, it should be said, on the other side
you
of
very
as well.
much.
Are you going to be back then on Line of Duty?
Listen, even if I was, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Oh. He'd kill me. He'd kill me dead.
Come on then, let's get your next track. This is Kokoroko.
Yeah, I just feel like summer is coming, and summer in Birmingham is glorious, and this makes me feel like summer.
There you go, a bit of Kokoroko, the latest selection from Claudia Jessie, our guest in The Other Side Of. And Claudia, it's clear to me, I'd never knew you before we did this interview, you're a girl who likes a good time, and I don't mean that in any kind of improper way.
Of course.
But you were telling me off air, your boyfriend, your partner now, Joseph.
Yeah.
You met him when you were out drinking
With my mum, yeah.
We were speculating about how early in the day that was. Go on, tell us.
It was
the
a
story.
reasonable time to start drinking, I think. Yeah, my
After
mum.
11.
That's right. If it's early enough to think it, it's early enough to drink it. We were at the Sun in the Station.
The station pub in King's Heath.
In King's Heath.
Yeah.
Me and my mum. My mum was playing wingman. We'd gone. I didn't go out to. I wasn't cruising. I didn't go out to Paul. I was just out with my mum. It was summer. It was beautiful, like beautiful weather, and my partner, he's a sound. He was working as a sound engineer at that time at the pub, and we met there, and we've been together nearly 5 years now. So yeah.
So he's still working in the sound business, is he?
Yeah, he works for a sound and lighting company, and he's wonderful, and he's from North Birmingham originally. Yeah, I know.
and your mum still around then? You're
Yep.
great, incribly supportive. I'll tell you what, from what you've said, I'd love to meet your mum as well.
She's a great lady. Like, yeah, so we're all in Moseley, and she's a huge champion. She just champions me all the time, and I think that's amazing. Like, no matter what whatever I come with to my mum, she'll support me no matter what. Really.
It's interesting though, isn't it? A lot of kids, I think, will have a difficult background, and will be able to identify with some of the struggles that you had, and poverty. Let's be honest about it, that you struggled with in childhood, but. Sadly, what a lot of those children don't have, but which you did have, was a mum who was able to give you massive support and broad horizons, the sense that you could achieve things in your life, even if you didn't have very much now. Yeah,
and I think, like, one of them, I think, rather than trying to shield someone from something, I think the best thing to do is to teach them how to become really, really resilient, because that's a more sustainable thing, I think, especially to become happy, like, is to fight obstacles and to overcome them, rather than trying to not experience any of them at all. And when you're given lemons, well, make lemonade, the rest.
Yeah, no,
but I think that's what my family's done.
But that thing of resilience, though, I mean, notwithstanding the fact that you've done some incredible roles, the job of an actor almost inevitably involves people saying, "Nah, no thanks."
Oh my goodness! I've had way more no's than I've had yeses, and that's just the reality of it. And also, it's still one of the hardest interesting. Like, my friend Ken told me recently, like 5% of actors are paid like a great wage full time, and the rest of us are just trying to make it. And it's a very, very difficult industry to be in. It's smothered in ego and hunger, animality, all of that stuff. And you've really got to find your way through it without picking up any of the rubbish. And I think having a base here in Birmingham has really supported me with that. Like, I live in my city. I consider this my city. And it's a degree of separation away from where it's happening, because it is quite London-centric, as is a lot of stuff, but we don't need to go into that. And I think having a base here in Birmingham, my family being here in Birmingham, has supported me with that.
Keeps you grounded.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get your next track, your final track. Never Going Back Again by Fleetwood Mac.
I love Fleetwood Mac, and one of the first things I ever heard my partner play on the guitar, he can play the guitar, was this, and I played it for days on end because I love him.
She broke down and let me in. Made me see where I've been.
Brilliant bit of Fleetwood Mac there with Never Going Back Again. Claudia, Jessie, it's been really entertaining to chat with you. I loved having you in for the other side. And what are you going to do next then? Any big movie roles next telly?
Oh, great. Oh, well, I hope so. If anyone's listening, yes, please.
Steven Spielberg is a big fan of the programme. Go on.
Well, he loves Birmingham. He shot a film here.
He did.
I'm in 2 comedies coming out this year. Second series of Porters, which is on Dave, where I play a kooky nurse. And I will carry on being here. So if you see me in Moseley, say hello.
Yeah, and definite no word on whether you're back on line of duty?
I mean, I wouldn't be allowed to tell you even if I was.
If you told me, you'd have to kill me.
Kill you.
It's been great to speak to you.
Thank
Thanks
you so much.
Stories, music, life. BBC WM
95.6.
Radio for the West Midlands.
Thanks for listening to the other side of Claudia Jessie here on BBC Sounds. What do you reckon, Claudia? Did you enjoy that?
I loved it. Thank you so much. I love any opportunity to talk about the Midlands, talk about the West Midlands, and be here in my city and represent it.
Have you got a football team?
No, I don't care for football. I'm so sorry.
And we were getting on so
I know,
well.
I've ruined it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Been great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is the BBC.